So then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to welcome Emma and Ronaldo from Bristan Group to talk about what they've been doing to support colleagues with menopause at Bristan. And I will get the slides up for Bristan Groups. So can I hand over to Ronaldo and Emma? I'm assuming you know who's going to go first, so I'll just hand over to you. I can see Ronaldo's face. Great. Over to you guys then.
Thank you for having us today. So my name is Ronalda. I'm one of the HR business partners at Bristan Group, and I was lucky enough to organise our recent Menopause Awareness Week back in August. And we are excited to share our journey so far and what we have learned, and hopefully learn from your experiences as well.
And hi, my name's Emma Thorne. I work in the brand team at the Bristan Group. I have been responsible for setting up and asking the business to set up the menopause support group at the Bristan Group. And I kind of really felt passionately about doing that. I've spoken to other colleagues who had, one colleague in particular who I remember had left work due to menopause symptoms. And I know the numbers are something like 23% of women consider leaving work due to menopause. And I just felt really strongly that there was a need for a support group. Yeah, got it off the ground and set that up.
Okay, so our actual initiative began in response to annual survey results. So where many employees actually highlighted the need for better support and regarding menopause, and recognizing that need, they were fortunate enough to have that strong backing from our Deputy CEO, Jen, who's also on the call today, which highlights the importance of having that leadership support in driving any important change within business. And I think it's really, really important to note that having that support is vital for any kind of change you want to launch within the business, within any company you go through, because if you don't have that buy-in from higher levels as well, it will be hard to drive that change. And like, as I said as well, that we were extremely lucky to have that support, because raising awareness around menopause or any initiative is more than just creating a policy or implementing a policy. It's about creating that inclusive culture in your workplace where employees feel valued and heard. So back in August, we dedicated a week full of menopause awareness with full-on activities aimed to educate and raise awareness around this important topic, and also to support employees. So during this week, we launched our menopause policy, which we developed in consultation with our support group as well. So we shared a proposed policy that we had at the time, and we asked for feedback to make sure actually that it actually fits our employee needs and what it actually aims to be there for. So it's important to ask that feedback, to get out on board and tailor that policy to make sure that it fits what employees actually need. On top of that, we also launched our tailored adjustment plan that was designed to provide that ongoing support for employees to make sure that we have a record of what we have agreed and what will be coming in the future weeks as well, just to make sure that we have that in writing and employees can feel more supported, and actually to start those conversations around this important topic as well and break that stigma. So it just so everyone is on the same page as well. In addition, we also rolled our online manager training for managers, with people managers and our team leads as well, to ensure that we best support our team members and experiencing menopause. And this training was essential. It was equipped to provide that supporting tools for our managers. That was about starting the conversations, breaking the stigma, understanding the difference between physical and mental health experiences when you go through menopause as well. So that was really important. And again, getting that support from the leadership team and driving the completion of the training as well across different departments, different teams, was really, really successful as well, and really great to see. We also partnered with Joanne Williams, our specialist in workplace psychology, to deliver workshops as well, and aiming and to educate and our employees around menopause. And we actually got over 30 colleagues, both men and women, attending these sessions. And the feedback that we received was overwhelmingly positive. Really good to see that it was well received, and people actually found it really interesting to learn more about menopause. And the actual feedback that we had from them, that they wanted more longer sessions just so they can expand on the topic and then learn more and how we can support our colleagues and our employees, direct employees. And on top of the actual learning experience following that, we also had a menopause quiz that was open to everyone within the business. And it was great to see that participation rate across different departments and interest just to learn more. So it shows that the need is there. People want to learn. People are curious, and it was really great to see that.
On the kind of softer side of things, obviously, we do know that exercise is really important in menopause to help alleviate symptoms. One of our colleagues stepped up, Louise Smith. She'd been doing yoga for 20 years and she actually offered to take 4 different sessions of yoga. The really great thing about this was that it was aimed at very much beginners and people of all abilities. So it was really very much around breathing and relaxation. And she did a guided meditation at the end. One of the key things to note, though, was this is right in the middle of the working day. And actually, a lot of people commented on how fantastic it was just to take that kind of mental health break almost in the middle of the day and then be able to refocus kind of coming back in the afternoon. So those were highly successful. And then we distributed the information around what exercises were done and breathing and how people could support themselves again at home. The plan is hopefully that we might think about more exercise sessions going forward and get that as a bit more of a regular occurrence. And then, as I mentioned before, I also set up the menopause support group. So this really came from kind of a coffee conversation with 2 other females who were at this stage of life and who were also potentially struggling. And after we kind of had discussed the things that were going on with us and how, you know, it kind of felt quite lonely, I decided to ask the business if it would be possible to set up the menopause support group. We set that up in August. The menopause week was the first week we did that group, and it's actually been really successful. One of the key feedbacks that I get from people is that it's just really lovely to be able to talk. We run it as a very informal session, so it's not a business meeting. There is no objectives, there's no KPIs. We don't expect to, you know, produce a ton of actions off the back of it. But what we do is just try and explore a little bit about the support and how people need that support, whether that's for themselves, whether that's for the greater kind of their partners and their families and their social circles, and really just at what stage they're actually at. From that, we've also set up a Teams chat now for the menopause support team, and we all post in that regularly, whether that's resources that we found, whether that's comments, whether that's just checking in with people and finding out how they are. And we also looked at, or we've set up a small menopause library. So obviously one of the key things is around education. So we've managed to secure some really key reading materials, obviously that people can just take and return as they've read them, and just really kind of help with that education piece, both in perimenopause and in menopause as well. And one of the things that came from the sessions was that some of the people who attended were either not even in perimenopause or in perimenopause, and they actually would really value a buddy system. So I talked to some of the ladies who were perhaps a little further in their journey and asked them if they would be happy to do a buddy system, and we have now set that up. And obviously for the people who are perhaps at an earlier stage or just want more information, that is something obviously that we can now offer as well. Thanks, Anthea. Do you mind swapping over to the next slide?
Yes, yeah.
So moving forward, what do we plan? Obviously, that was Menopause Week. It was hugely successful, but obviously, as we all know, this conversation shouldn't stop. It's really about keeping that conversation going. We're quite fortunate in that we have a comms channel called Plumbed In, which is a monthly publication. And we have a section in that called Walk a Mile in My Shoes. We are keen to keep that conversation going and sharing experiences within that. I think one of the things with menopause is breaking this silence stigma attached to menopause, which is kind of a society thing, but I think it is really about being able to share your stories in a positive and inclusive way, so that obviously people feel comfortable to be able to talk about what they're going through. We as a group obviously will review company support as well, so we can act as that bridge between the business obviously and the people that feel they need support around menopause. We're also looking for a new location for the group, because it is an informal meeting, probably a little bit like similar to our book club. We have to hold it in a meeting room at the moment, and it's perhaps not the most conducive for a relaxed conversation, so it's really kind of understanding where we go from there. And one of the things I would say that I've learned from setting up the menopause support group is that there is so much content and things to talk about. When you think about all the different stages of the menopause that people might be in, plus obviously the people who are supporting us around us as well, family, friends, partners, and then also all the kind of well-being piece, if you like, around medication, around eating correctly, around taking supplements, around exercising. it really is about understanding, I think, what is important to the group and being able to focus on that, because there is just so much to do. One of the things I realised quite quickly when I set up the group was that obviously I'm not medically trained. I can't offer support on any medical aspects of the menopause. But I did reach out to a contact who is medically trained, and we have actually brought her in to do the session in December. And I've asked everyone to submit questions to the group so that she has some pre-prep on that. And I think it's really important that where there are gaps in perhaps the knowledge of the group, or where people really need support, that you do try and reach out and perhaps bring that expertise into the group to support on that. I'm really keen on looking across not just our business, but other businesses around where we can share best practice, where we can get more education, and where we can really start sharing our resources. It can feel a little bit like you're doing it on your own, and I don't think that is the case, and I don't think it should be the case either. I think we all have here a really great platform to actually start, being able to share that best practice and learn from each other as well. We also, as I mentioned, are looking at regular exercise options, kind of, walking groups and canteen food options to make sure that we are all eating, better food, which could support our symptoms as well. Let me go on to the next slide, please, Anthea. Thank you.
Yes, and in summary that we learned is it's important to continuously learn about the subject. So obviously one fit will not fit for everyone, and we need to be aware of that as well. So even though we have a policy in place and we have a tailored adjustment plan in place, we need to be mindful that we need to continuously learn and explore other avenues and how we can support our employees, especially that would be asking for feedback, asking for experiences as well that be shared across the teams as well. That is really important. And again, as I mentioned before as well, it's vital to have that support as well from your leadership team. It's about fostering that inclusive culture where everyone feels respected and supported. We have been, as I said, we have been extremely lucky to have that support during our journey as well. It's been fundamental to our progress.
One of the things I did want to mention in this group, just so people are aware, is that it can be quite daunting when you're talking about menopause. Some of the symptoms can be quite severe, and it can be quite scary for people who perhaps haven't got there yet or just want to know more. One of the things that we learned very much is that it isn't a one size fits all. Certainly from a communications perspective, be really aware that people will be all at all different levels of knowledge, and what we really don't want to do is obviously scare people into thinking that menopause is something that they need to be afraid of. I think it is really about understanding the audiences, and if you need to, perhaps tailoring things or separating those audiences so that you hit the right note with each person, because the last thing we want obviously is to turn people off or frighten them around menopause. I think the other thing that I've learned from the group is that sometimes people just want to talk. They actually might not want support, or they might not know what that support looks like, but the fact that they feel isolated and that they feel like it's just happening to them, and they may not be able to talk around it to other channels and have that acceptance and awareness, be aware that that is probably where you might start, is just that open and supportive conversation and being able to be authentic. I was overwhelmed by the amount of honesty that the people brought to the group. And, that is something that I think people have been waiting for a while to say. And one of the other important things is that we try really hard not to forget about the supporters of people going through menopause. We talked in the group that we've literally just done this week around a poster about myth busting, and also around, symptoms, to try and help people to understand perhaps if someone in their family or their nearest and dearest is starting to experience the menopause, not to be afraid of that, and obviously understand potentially what that might be.
Thank you, ladies. There's loads in that, and I will share the slides with everybody afterwards, because there's loads in that. And I know, Dawn, you're there somewhere. So do you want to just pop up? Yeah, and I'll put your slides.
I'm the people manager at, we're actually encouraged to call the business Orbia B&I, but it's actually an offshoot of Orbia. We're called Wavin. That's the brand name that people know us by. So this journey started probably about 12 to 18 months ago, I would say, we do an annual survey with our Women of Wavin. It's the WOW survey, the Women of Wavin survey. And one of the questions we asked was, you know, what do we need to do better as an organisation? What do we need to do better at? How can we improve? And resoundingly, the answer was, you know, predominantly we're a male business, and you need to educate, you know, some of these male leaders about female health issues, and menopause comes at the top of that list for us. So what we've done is, next slide please, Anthea. We are on the cusp of introducing a menopause policy. It has already been signed off by our leadership team, by our occupational health team, our health and safety team, and it's currently with our legal team at the moment, who unfortunately aren't moving as quickly as we would like them to. So I thought I'd start off by telling you a little bit about what's in the policy, the content. I'm really happy to share it with anyone that would like to see a copy, you know, whether it proves a starting ground for what you might like to do in your organisations. But I do need to be clear that, you know, it's a draft at this moment in time. It's not been signed off by our legal team. So the risk is yours if you want to use it and take it. So the policy, it recognises that there are many adverse symptoms which may have an impact on an employee's ability to perform their role during the menopause. You know, we're very clear that those, even though they might be temporary, they're awful. You know, they can really affect your well-being, how you focus, how you perform, whether you turn up at work at all. And you know, we want to be mindful of that. That's the first thing that the policy recognises. It outlines the business's pledge to treat all employees equally, recognising all gender identities as well. Obviously, not just women, there are trans people within the organisation, there are gender fluid people, there are non-binary people, and we include all of those within the policy scope as well. The policy aims to create a culture where menopause is discussed openly and it's taken seriously. We want to get to the stage where mental health currently is. Do you remember 10, 15 years ago when no one ever talked about mental health? It was really embarrassing, it was really awkward. We want to get to this stage with menopause, and we're miles away currently, but hopefully with this policy and the steps that we're hoping to take, then we can get there sooner rather than later. We want to educate all leaders to provide support and banish discriminatory practices. And obviously there's signposting support there for those who are currently going through the menopause and you know, who need further support and guidance. The policy also explains the terminology that we use, such as premature menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, what the menopause actually is. It outlines the possible symptoms that employees may experience, such as sleep disruption, problems focusing and concentration, and bone and joint pain, you know, alongside the whole host of other delights that come with it as well. It references the support and reasonable adjustments that can be made to employees to make their time at work more comfortable. And it also clarifies the right to make a flexible working request to help them better manage their symptoms. Obviously, since the Employment Rights Bill came in, well, it's going to come in 2 days' time, isn't it? We have had, I wouldn't say we've been inundated with flexible working requests, but we have had a couple of people going through the menopause who are keen to perhaps adjust their working pattern and how that looks to help them better cope. And, you know, we've been able to support them with that, which is brilliant news. The policy is also clear on the responsibilities of the employees, the line managers, the people team, the occupational health team, and the health and safety team as well. So, for example, the responsibility of the employee, we want to help you, but we can only help you if you're amenable to having an open and honest, frank discussion with us. That's the only way we can do it, you know. So that responsibility is yours to flag it with us in the first place. Line managers have a responsibility to undertake and participate in all of the training courses that we do. They have to make themselves familiar with the menopause policy itself. You know, it's no good saying, oh, I've not read it. No, it's your job to read it. It's your responsibility as a, you know, responsible people leader to do that. The people team, we will work with them to make the contractual rearrangements that might need to happen in the result of a successful flexible working application. The occupational health team and the health and safety team support us in, undertaking risk assessments, explaining we not experts in this area. If anyone is, it's the occupational health team and the health and safety team, and it's about them saying, this happens in this department, it would be so much easier if this happened. We haven't got all the answers, so that's how they support us in that. And we've pledged to review the policy every 2 years as well. Things change, legislation changes, working practices change, and so we need to review that regularly to make sure that we're on top of it and offering the very best support that we can. So next slide, please, Anthea. So I mentioned a little bit about this on the previous slide. So line manager awareness sessions. Once we have the policy fully signed off by our legal team, which we hope will be in the next week or two, we had hoped to launch this in Menopause Awareness Month, but we don't think it's going to be possible. We will be doing line manager awareness sessions for every leader who has people management responsibilities. And as I've said previously, they're to make themselves aware of the policy contents. The policy, once it's been signed off, will be circulated to everybody within the organisation, and every employee will have access to it, whether that's on our electronic SharePoint site, or whether there's physical copies left in the work break rooms, then that's what we'll do to make sure that everybody's aware. We also send out comms and announcements, on a regular basis of what's new, what people need to be aware of, and it will form part of that also. Line managers, as we know, are responsible for having open conversation with affected employees. There's no room here for embarrassment or shyness, just same as there was with mental health 10 years ago. Just strap your big boy pants on and let's go. And I use the term big boy pants because a lot of our leaders are male. They're obliged to make any reasonable adjustments that might enable the employee to remain in work, or just to make them more comfortable or productive during the course of the working day. They are responsible for keeping a summary of all discussions and following up on any agreed actions. And they're responsible for conducting regular review meetings to ensure that, what was put in place 6-9 months ago is still relevant and working for the employee. We also have additional support measures alongside the policy and the awareness sessions in the future. Currently, we've got a wellbeing room. The wellbeing room is open to anyone that just needs, to clear the head for 5-10 minutes. There is a nice squashy sofa in there. There's a water dispenser on there. There are, a couple of occupational health and wellbeing leaflets in the room as well. The ceiling is lit up with, there's been no expense spared here at Wavin, I'm telling you this, it's like a cloud effect. So if the employee just wants to lean back and just focus on something other than, a white room, then lights can switch on and there's a cloud effect, which we hope will have a calming effect. There's, like I said, there's water dispensers in the room. So if they just want 5 minutes away from everything to regain themselves, regain composure, recollect the thoughts, then they can do that. We've added welfare baskets in our toilets as well, which include things like wet wipes and deodorants and body sprays and, face wipes, things like that, just to help people who might need to use them. There is, similar to the previous speakers, we have a WOW group, a Women of Wavin group, a Teams chat. And if anyone's read anything interesting in the Sunday papers about, some brilliant new shampoo that helps hair thinning, or there's some new vitamins out, or a really helpful article, then we share that on that women's chat group as well. And that's currently a Microsoft Teams chat group. Anyone can join, it's not just open to women. We need the men to understand as well. We need their buy-in too. We're lucky enough to have an employee assistance program that employees can also tap into. That's a phone call, that can be a website, or a helpline as well. So that's there too. And again, we have a designated occupational health team as well, and their campaigns are very much seasonable. So in summer it will be about, you know, avoid the sun, don't get sunburn. At Christmas it's around watch your alcohol intake, just look after yourself a little bit, and every October going forward now there will be a menopause awareness session that's championed through our occupational health team. That's us so far.
Brilliant. Loads there, Dawn. Looking forward to seeing the policy when it's finished, and I'm sure some people would be really keen to see a copy of that. So do you want to introduce yourself, Mel, while I just get your slides up?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Mel Sheeja. I'm a Learning and Development Partner at Knauf here. My colleague Debbie, unfortunately, she's not unable to get onto the call, but she has been heavily involved in our initiatives around menopause. So I'm going to talk you through the slides. Thank you. So we first recognised Menopause Awareness Day back in 2022. We did it quite organically. We gave out these menopause survival kits. We made them available in both of our sites for employees to come and help themselves too. And they contained lots of little bits. I've got my one on the desk here, but lots of little bits linked to menopause, and it had a little message in it and a little card. And they went down really, really well. I think we were surprised by not only female employees taking them, but also partners that have their partners going through menopause symptoms, took them home, and the feedback was really good on those. We also held hubs in both of our sites where employees joined with coffee and cake, and they talked about their menopause experience. So like the other speakers on the call today, it was about creating a bit of safe space for employees to come and talk about their journeys, which were all really different. And I think it was just reassuring for employees to be able to speak to each other in the workplace where they'd been experiencing symptoms or challenges, to say, oh gosh, me too, and create that space really. In that time, we watched some awareness videos, and we shared the Davina McCall menopausing book as well, because at the time I think the documentary had come out and there was quite a lot of talk about it. So that was really good to share. Our team members still have that book actually on their desk, and sometimes when employees come in, they'll reference it, and it will start a conversation. So that's been quite good at sparking it. We then launched the WINK network, which is Women in Knauf, in January this year. And this led on from that really, in terms of creating a safe space for our female employees to come together and talk about lots of different topics, and menopause being one of those. So we have the network set up on our Teams, so people can Teams in there, and we hold monthly events through the network as well on different topics. Thank you. So International Women's Day this year, we had speakers in on lots of subjects, but one of them in particular was on the menopause. And we brought in Sophie Cartledge, who is the founder of Hormones on the Blink. And we brought her in because she was a specialist in this area who could talk about the medical side really that we weren't qualified to talk about. So she came in, she talked about what was going on with hormones, but also the help that's out there. And we had lots of discussion in the room about individuals' symptoms that they were experiencing, or potentially family members, so parents, partners going through the symptoms. So we had a really good session in that. And coming out of that, we then launched our own menopause policy, which creates a bit of a framework for support within Knauf for managers and for employees as well. Thank you, Anthea. So this one is our general policy, but obviously, as everyone said, the experience is really personal to each individual. So we recognise also that one size doesn't fit all. but that there is support there within Knauf, and like the others have spoken about, you know, our management team and our leadership team have been very open to this. I think we've got Ian on the call, who's our managing director, who's been really supportive and attended the International Women's Day talk actually. And so that's been really important, and launching the policy as well for employees to feel like that there is support here, that we are recognising and acknowledging it. And that although we've got this framework in place, it's really about understanding each individual and what's going on with them and what their needs are in the organisation in terms of maybe any adjustments that might be needed, and any support that we can signpost them to. We also have an employee assistance programme, and we have a health provider as well that employees are able to contact outside of the organisation. And lastly, Menopause Awareness Day last week, we invited Sophie back, and we had a panel discussion within our WINK network, which was really lovely actually. We had 3 employees who each shared their menopause experience, and it's such a shame Debbie can't join today because she was one of the panel members that shared, but she and her colleagues shared what they had been experiencing, how that had impacted and what it meant, and it really opened up the discussion actually for lots of questions. We also ran a survey during the session, which was helpful because up until now we'd not collected any data, but we ran a Mentimeter survey during the session to ask employees how comfortable they felt and how supported they felt within Knauf, and the ability to be able to talk about it. What was really lovely is that everybody felt like it was 100% that the support was there. I think the biggest takeaway from us was that 50% felt comfortable talking to their line manager about it, and 50% felt like their manager was male, so wouldn't understand. And I think that's where we have taken away in terms of next steps in providing some manager awareness training for our managers to feel comfortable to have the conversation with employees, but also then what the policy means actually in reality, so that employees then feel like they can feel comfortable approaching their manager. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mel, for that. You did a great job. Bearing in mind you weren't prepared to do that. Brilliant, well done. I just thought before we go into Q&As, a couple of you mentioned the new employment rights bill, which it's now been announced by the government, but is actually not going to be implemented straight away. So there's lots of consultation that needs to take place before we can implement the bill. But in the bill, they are proposing to mandate employers to include menopause support in their equality action plans. So I thought I'd just mention that, because I think it's coming our way, if the bill is passed, that we are all going to be required to actually legally do something to create an equality action plan and talk about what we're going to do to support colleagues impacting the menopause. It's not going to happen this year. It's probably from latest I heard, probably the earliest we're going to start to see some of this stuff implemented is the end of next year. So we've got plenty of time to plan it, but just so everyone's aware, we're going to move away from it being a nice to have. We're going to be expected to support our colleagues experiencing menopause. Okay, so thanks very much to all of our speakers. Just if anybody on the call would just stick their hands up if you'd like to ask a question. Hang on, there's one here. Margaret. Thanks, Margaret. Can you tell us more about the profile of the men attending the workshops? You know, the sort of age, the sort of roles, you know, any other characteristics. So anyone like to try and answer that? Who's maybe Bristan, do you want to start? Emma or Ronaldo, what kind of male support have you had?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So within the workshops, we had men from across different business areas. So it was from warehouse, IT to the leadership team. So it's like different areas at all. And from discussing it with them, the reason why they're there, it was more personal reasons, as in their partner were going through menopause, and they wanted to learn more on how to support them. But it was really good to see that they're going above and beyond, not just because of work tick box exercise. I have attended a workshop, but actually genuinely wanted to learn more about it. And it was we didn't actually take the stats on the age as such. I think it was, if you would have to guess, but that's not a good assumption to do, so I probably will take away from that one.
Brilliant. And go on.
Sorry, I was just going to add to that. When I published the article about my menopause journey, a gentleman in the business reached out to me, quite a senior gentleman, and shared his experience of kind of seeing his wife through the menopause and how he wished he'd taken more education and understood it better and everything else, which I thought was kind of very brave. Obviously, it was on Teams, it wasn't in a public forum, but I do think there is an element of male support there that we need to think about, would be my view on that.
Brilliant. Dawn, have you got any views on who's been involved from a male perspective?
It's been all our everyone knows this is coming. We've not done it yet, but
Yeah.
male leaders, I'd say ranging from age probably 25 to 65. And initially there was well, I don't have any female members in my team. It's like, well, you don't have now, but you might have in 6 months' time. And we've also been quite clear on, it might not help you at work, but it might help you in your personal life. I'm sure you've got a mother or a sister or an auntie or a daughter or something like that where you could really apply and use it. So yeah, that's been our experience so far.
Thanks, Dawn. And Mel, do you know what the experience at Knauf has been?
Yeah, most of our sessions have been with the Women in Knauf network. So I must admit that has been one of the big things that we've now identified, especially through the last session, is that we need to start now involving the men, more. And with the manager awareness trainings, we'll start doing that and inviting along to events.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's been a learning.
Great, we've got a few more hands up. So Melanie Marsh, you've got your hand up. So do you want to pose your question?
It's not really a question, it's more of a quote, really. I think the thing for me is the fact the amount of women who are misdiagnosed with menopausal symptoms in this day and age, and the fact that there are now around an average of 40 symptoms. And it's making people aware of what those symptoms are. And ensuring that you have got a supportive doctor who can talk you through all your options and what is available to you.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Melanie. Thank you.
Sorry, Anthony, I was just going to mention that. In the first group we did, I actually asked people in the group to name some of the symptoms that they had. And I think we got to 25. So I totally appreciate it probably is 40, but yeah, there's a lot. And I think it's very variable as well. And obviously the degrees of that vary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Charlotte, you've got your hand up. Hi. And you're
Hello.
on mute.
Just coming off mute. Yeah, sorry.
Great.
Working the buttons. I'm not used to Google.
Yeah.
Key for me, and probably for others, is how have you all managed to get your senior male leadership support for these schemes, especially where you've needed some budget for the kits, etc. I'd be really interested to know.
I'll go first, Charlotte, if that's okay with that. Orbia are very keen and very into well-being and mental health and all of that, so it was quite an easy sell doing that. We have a very, very strong leadership team, the majority of whom are male. However, there are some real powerhouses on there, some real good, strong female allies, and it was almost non-negotiable. And again, the male leadership team, all of them are husbands, all of them are fathers, all of them are, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like pushing on an open door, really.
Mel, because when I looked at your little kit, I thought that they won't be cheap doing those kits. So how did you go about getting support?
Likewise to Dawn, actually, we are very focused on well-being and that side of it. So actually, that our leadership team was very supportive as well. Emma, our HR director, is a real champion for individuals and what they're going through. So so I think, I don't know if Ian's still on the call, but I think from Ian's perspective, exactly the same. As a wife, as a dad of 3 girls. So I think, the conversation has been happening wider than the organisation for a long time. So I don't think it wasn't a challenge here either.
And Nick, sorry, Nicola.
Well, do you want me to add to what Mel said?
Go on, Ian, go on.
No, because I would have said 2 to 3 years ago would not have been anywhere near my thinking at all. So it's relatively recent, not unlike some other areas in diversity and inclusion. So I mean, it's not alone in that, but it certainly was one thing. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit part of seeing my wife Sarah go through it or in it. That's part of it, but it's also because it's wrapped up in the whole Women in Knauf network. I think it needs to be framed around something. I don't think it stands on its own, but it needs to be framed as part of a wider initiative, as one of the an important part of it, but one of the parts of it. And there's no doubt, the other, of course, thing that struck me, as Mel said, I went to one of the menopause day last year and sat in for some of it. And there's nothing like sitting somewhere for an hour or 2 hours listening and learning and being educated by it and realizing quite the scope of what we're talking about. So all of that's important.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ian. Thank you. And anything from the Bristan ladies, anything you want to add about support from the organisation and how to get it?
We obviously are really fortunate. We have Jen as our deputy CEO, and she obviously is a huge advocate of DE&I. But it is, I think, really important to note that in the workshops, we did have very senior exec leadership team in that workshop as well. And they were very, very keen to embrace it. So I do feel like with Jen's leadership, people are very much open to those conversations and understand the importance of it as well. You know, the male kind of contingent as well.
Brilliant.
Can I chip in as well? Yeah, so apologies
Of course
not
you
being
can,
on camera. It's the only spot I had to walk for my dog, so I've got a woolly hat on and nobody needs to see that. I think, Charlotte, one of the things is to try and frame these things in terms of business needs. Sometimes if you're not getting that buy-in, if you can talk in terms of lost working hours and make it less of a kind of emotional thing, I suppose, and more of a practical, this is costing your business, just if you are struggling. I mean, hopefully people don't, but I think sometimes if we take it away from, I don't know, being about the people and make it about the business, if you are struggling, rightly or wrongly, that can have an impact as well.
Yeah. And there's plenty of stats out there, aren't there? Plenty of stats that talk about the number of women who suffer, you know, 1 in 4, isn't it, have completely debilitating symptoms. The number of women who actually leave work. There's plenty of stats out there to actually to help build the business case. Yeah. And Margaret, I see you've popped on camera because you asked a question about the male menopause. Is there such a thing? And I'm really intrigued to know what the ladies think, because I don't know whether there is such a thing. So, male menopause.
This. Yeah, when we were counting our policy round for comment and consultation, you know, a couple of male voices did pipe up and say, what about us? So we went straight back to our occupational health team, and the answer we received was, it's not medically recognised, it's not medically proven. We think it might be a thing, but until, you know, the science and the medics say, yeah, let's go for it, then that's what we were advised.
Okay, no, that's it's a good, I think it's good to know that and to be able to make that point. Because I did hear talk of the male menopause and I just didn't know any more about it. So.
It's actually on the NHS website.
What is it? What does it say about it on the NHS website then?
It's generally, they say it's a development of depression, loss of sex drive, obviously areas affected in that region as well, and other physical and emotional symptoms when they reach their 40s and 50s.
Right.
So it is actually recognised on the NHS website.
Well,
there we go. We're all learning.
Well, I just think it might be something to be taken into consideration in policies as well, because then it isn't really fair if you just put things in place for women.
Correct.
You know, if there is a male menopause.
Yeah, I think it goes all back. Goes back to the whole well-being piece, doesn't it? Well-being for everybody. But I guess the fact that it's not talked about, you know, all women go through the menopause. Maybe the male menopause is some men suffer symptoms and not every, I don't know enough about it, but really good point to have a look at. what I wanted to say is that was our first lunch and learn. So I'd be really interested to hear your feedback. Was it worth it? What we'll do is we will get a copy of the Wavin policy from Dawn, and Dawn, we can wait till it's signed off, and we'll share it in our member resources. So again, if anyone on the call doesn't know what I'm talking about, we've got a place on our Construction Inclusion Coalition website where we store examples of member materials and policies. Anyone can have access to it. So if you want access to it, drop me an email and I'll tell you how to go about getting yourself access. So we'll put a recording of this, put the slides from today, and we will put there's already, I think the Knauf policy is already on there. I think maybe the backseat policies, or I can't remember. There's a couple of policies already on there. So if you are thinking about having to draft your own menopause policy, you can go and have a look and see what others have done. And you don't need to start with a blank sheet of paper. You can start with something that is already been done. We're not saying they're best practice. We're saying they're member practices. So do get them checked out by your own, whatever you need to do, legal teams before you use them, but feel free to get ideas from other people. And then we're running a second lunch and learn on the it's the 12th of November, where myself and Karen from Genoa are just going to share how we've started to go about collecting diversity data. Because one of the other really critical things on the ED&I agenda is that you need to start understanding your makeup of your workforce so you can understand where to target initiatives. So we're just going to talk very briefly about what we've done in our organisations to collect diversity data. Again, it's not best practice, it's member practice, but if you are thinking about how you've tried to collect diversity data and it hasn't worked, or you haven't even started, come and have a listen and find out what we're doing. And rather than again starting from scratch with a blank sheet of paper, let's give you some hints and tips about how to get started on that thing. And the idea is, for me, is what I'd love to have is one of these sessions every month. So if anyone's got any ideas about topics that you'd like to hear about, please let me know. And if anyone knows something going on in their organisation that you'd like to share with the other members, please let me know as well, because we need your help to create the content for these workshops. So I think it's 12:54, which is great. So if any other final questions before we go, or shall we call it a day? And yeah. Oh, Christina, go ahead.
It's just a very quick one, and it was actually in the first CIC that you held that I thought was such an important bit of information, is when we're trying to obviously write policies or set up different programs within our business, but we don't actually know how to for those diverse sort of groups. It's about going to those diverse groups rather than trying to figure out internally. And I picked that up from your guys' first CIC. And I think that is so key, is go to these minority or diverse groups and ask them, rather than making assumptions or trying to form policies from what you might pick up online. Actually go to these diverse groups and say, listen, what would you like to see?
Yeah.
How would you like to be supported? And that was just something I picked up from you that I think is actually really key.
Yeah, and I think so. One of the things some organisations are doing is setting up employee resource groups on various topics, and that's a great way to start. And that could be another topic about, if you're at the very beginning of your ED&I journey, you need to get your leadership buy-in. How do you get started? You need to build your business case. How do you get started? But you also need to get your own colleagues on board and find out from them. And I remember one of the best pieces of advice as I got was start the conversation about inclusion and invite people to come along and be part of a working group and find out what emerges. Don't actually decide what you're going to do. Find out where the energy is, because you need energy from people in the organisation to actually get this stuff going. You need people who are prepared to champion the work, and even if you're in an HR team, you cannot do it by yourself. You need people in the organisation to help you. Brilliant. Well, thanks very much to all of our speakers, and thank you everybody for turning up. And please do turn up to the other sessions. As I say, we will record this session and we will save it on member resources, so let me know if you need access to that. So thanks very much, everyone. Have a good day.